Welcome to Washington East to West Sports. This is episode 109. I am Matt Beatty, joined alongside, as usual, by Sean Beatty and Kevin Ardall. If you want to get involved in the show, excuse me, go ahead and tweet us. I'm at Beatty Matt. Sean is at Nasty Bailey 22, and Kevin is at C2Believe. That's SEA 2 Believe on X or Twitter. Subscribe to us. Smash that subscribe button. Like our videos. Tell us what you think of what we talk about in the comments below. We're going to start with some Sounders soccer. And no, we're not going to get into that semifinal loss against LAFC 1-0. I hate that. But Nico Lodeiro is going to be moving on from the Sounders. The Sounders had a whole bunch of posts today. What a career for Nico Lodeiro. 8 seasons, 58 goals, 95 assists, 7 trophies, 2 MLS Cups, and 1 CONCACAF Champions League champ. Sean, what do you think of the end of Nico Lodeiro as a Seattle Sounder?
It's sad, but it's one of those moves where you knew it was coming. Age, production, cost was just not there. So it would have probably sucked if it was more like, the writing wasn't on the wall in the last season, but it does. It sucks anytime like a legend like ages out, basically. But it is time to go. And he had hard to argue, a better run than a lot of other MLS players. So it would have like nice to have one more, but he still had four titles, I think they said. Yep, four cups. So pretty good.
Yeah, I think my highlight was watching the MLS Cup in Montana randomly in 2019 when I was out with a birthday vacation with some friends, and that was the closest bar was Montana, and we went and watched the 2019 MLS Cup, which was in Seattle, and my friends wanted to go, but they went to the birthday thing instead. So thanks, friends. But that was beautiful to watch them win 3-0, and Nico has so many titles to his name, as we've already talked about. So I don't really know what the Sounders do for honoring former players. It's not really clear when you go to the stadium. So whatever the
Is he
Ring
gonna
of
keep
Honor
trying to?
is,
Is he gonna keep
he,
trying to play?
he's going to keep trying to play.
Okay, so
From
they,
what
they
he
might have to
said,
wait until he retires.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But once he's done playing, Nico should be honored in some way by this
Yeah.
organization. So, um, you know, congrats on a great career with the Sounders. Hopefully, you'll move on to a place that will appreciate you as much as Seattle has. So, Nico, thank you very much for your time as a Sounder and bringing so many titles to Seattle. So, let's move on to another sad subject, the Seattle Kraken. That's right. They are 8-14-7 with 23 points, and they are sitting just barely above Sean's San Jose Sharks, which he's wearing the hat today, probably because
I'm
of that
wearing I'm
reason.
wearing a beanie. No,
Oh,
no,
sorry,
just
a beanie.
I'm
Sorry,
on a
beanie.
beanie kick right now, so that's why.
Okay.
My other ones I haven't washed all the other beanies yet, so this is a comfortable one. So
Well, their last win was against San Jose the day before Thanksgiving. Then they have rattled off a solid 8 straight losses, 2 in shootout or overtime. They have tied for the most shootout or overtime losses. Sean, what have you thought of the Seattle Kraken?
um it's what we talked about in the start of season. So when we did our predictions, Matthew used his head and I used my heart and I thought maybe they could sneak in um to the playoff spot, but I had my doubts. I said this team doesn't score enough goals. They didn't last year, and they give up too many goals. And obviously, when you give up more goals than you score, or more points than you score in any sport, it's bad.
Wait a
And
minute.
that's what they're doing at not at a historic rate. They're not the Sharks yet, but they're just their puck luck regressed, and they don't have any stars. They don't have any dudes. And again, I'm not going to blame Matty Beniers for not taking the step to be a star. It's his second full season in the NHL. It's too much to put on a kid. But unless somebody takes a huge step, this is just who they are. And the West still isn't great, but the West quickly is getting better, I think. And the Kraken didn't get better. They got arguably worse this offseason. And that's just what it was. They were very, let's just call a spade a spade. Again, this is why you look at process, not results. They were lucky to be in the playoffs last year. And they just aren't going to get lucky again. And they had to improve and build off of it. They didn't. And this is where they find themselves. Um, it's not over yet, but historically, you look at it's American Thanksgiving. That's what the everybody says because it's a largely Canadian sport. So and American, so everyone says American Thanksgiving is like a deadline where 80% of teams in the playoffs make the playoffs are in the playoff spot by Thanksgiving, which the Kraken were not. So it's a pretty uphill battle. The odds are definitely stacked against them. Arizona and Nashville are in the playoff spot. I thought Nashville would get there. I thought Calgary would be in there. Vancouver's been surprising, but Edmonton Oilers have just been they fired their coach and then just like ran roughshod over the entire NHL since then. So they're gonna sneak us. They're gonna get a spot from somebody, and it's just gonna make it that much harder for the Kraken to get there. So I would say, honestly, I don't want to say give up on the season, but I find the odds of them making the playoffs like 5%. I just don't see it this year. I think it's pretty much toasted.
Yeah, it's not looking great at this point. I mean, especially if you lose 8 straight, that's gonna put a downer on any
They
season,
are winning
regardless of
tonight.
where you're
It's
at.
1-0. It's
They are
1-0.
1-0 against Florida right now, so that's nice. But there's still one period of play, so I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. But if it does go south, I would like to see some younger guys come up. They brought up Shane Wright a few times, Riker Evans a few times, Max McCormick a few times. They have a pretty solid team in Coachella Valley that has, I haven't actually followed them along this year, but last year they almost won the is it Calder Cup in the AHL? I believe it's Calder Cup.
Yes.
And let's get some of those guys some time if this season goes south like they did in their inaugural season, because you had Matty Beniers get drafted and then he came up for 10 games and then he had that season last year. It's not going nearly as well as it did last year, but yeah, I think there's going to be some changes in the offseason. Brandon Tanev just can't stay healthy, so as much as he is a fan favorite, I could see them moving on from him. Uh, they brought in Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. I think he's just kind of getting a little bit too old. I don't really see him with a future here. He's 38, so you're probably gone after this season. And then there's just some guys who are playing for some spots. I mean, a lot of guys like Oliver Bjorkstrand was expected to be better, and he just hasn't really produced. Jared McCann, he's has the most goals on the team, but I mean that's not saying a lot when you have 13 and the next closest guy is 8. So it's really hard to, they had depth scoring last year and they just don't have it this year. They just can't seem to score. Andre Burakovsky is just never healthy. He's signed a 5-year deal. He's played like 20 games. It's just like you got to get that guy healthy somehow. So we'll see what they do down the stretch here, but at least they're giving Ty Cartier a chance after that playoff run. I like seeing that. He hasn't performed as well as he did in those playoffs, but hopefully he can kind of pick up the pace as the season gets close to the end, and then once next year moves on, they can kind of shift their lines around a little bit, because the the Eberle line with Wenberg and Gore just isn't working. It's just not working. So they need to switch up their lines a little bit. It's just they just keep trotting the same thing out and just doesn't work time after time. So hopefully they kind of mix it up there a little bit.
Talent, depth is great, but in order to win anything that matters, you need the elite talent. You need the dudes. They still just don't have dudes, and that's just the problem. Like if that second or third, that third line or second line, if you get any scoring out of your fourth, it's always a bonus in any team. But like your second, third line aren't doing it. You need your Austin Matthews, your guys, again, Erik Karlssons they should have traded for in the offseason. You need a guy who's going to get you points. We need help get points. He has 20 points for a struggling like Pittsburgh right now, and like it's not gonna lead the team, but it'd be like what, second on the team, and they're struggling. Like a struggling Erik Karlsson would be second on this team in points. Like it's just you need a guy to get you a goal. You need a guy who's gonna do that, and it doesn't have to be every game, but you need a guy you can count on. And just like they're not addressing that. Depth is not going to solve it, because if the depth struggles even a little bit, you don't have any way to make that up. You don't, or an injury. Like you don't have the elite guy to take over. You're replacing your B- grade with a C+, which is great, but you don't have any A's to balance out all those couple C's you have from injuries that just happened this season, and it just sucks. You need to. I don't know if there's any coming either, but you need to find one, maybe two.
And if this keeps going, I think you'd agree, Sean. They'll probably do some selling at the deadline. I think they'll probably trade a few guys.
They have a nice plethora of like depth guys. They just don't have any guys I don't think it's going to bring back like a high enough pick to like find a dude. And that's why you're hoping, and I'm hoping Matty Beniers turns into that guy. And he's 21. Like it's just 21 on a team where he's like the offense. And so I feel like teams are keying in on him. They're like, we got to stop Matty, basically. And so like he just needs some help, basically. And I'm hoping that could be Shane Wright. And at this point, Matthew, like I'm going to ask you, just call him up and leave him. Like, honestly, what is the downside at this point? Like, just let him play. Let the kid
I
play at this
I
point.
I do. As much as I hate to agree with you, I do agree. He's playing great in Coachella Valley. Like, give the kid a shot. Like, it didn't work out last year, and is just after he was drafted, and they sent him back down, and they just don't really seem to have a plan to ever bring him back up. Like, bring him up. Let's bring up some of those guys from Coachella Valley. Let's see what they got at the bigger level. And, at this point, what do you have to lose? So,
He's
yeah.
dominating a lower level. He was a high pick because he has tons of potential and talent. Just leave him. Like, he's not going to learn anything from playing in the AHL anymore. Just do it. Just do
All
it.
right. Well, let us know what you think of the Kraken and Nico Lodeiro. Go ahead and tweet us. I'm at Baderscore Sean is at NastyBlade22. Kevin is at C2Believe. That's SEA2Believe on Twitter or X. Subscribe to us, smash it, like our videos. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Let's move on to the Seattle Mariners. And last time,
God,
Kevin
go
told
on.
me there wasn't a whole lot of news, but there's some news this time. Oh, there's some news this time. The first thing the Mariners did right before Thanksgiving, no less, they traded Eugenio Suarez to the Arizona Diamondbacks for right-hander Carlos Vargas and veteran catcher Sebi Zavala. And then on December 3rd, so that would be last Sunday, the Mariners traded Jared Kelenic, Marco Gonzalez, and Evan White to the Atlanta Braves for right-hander Jackson Kowar and Cole Phillips. So, Kevin, we haven't heard from you yet. So, what do you think? You got the Mariners hat on too. You're ready. What do you think of these two trades?
Essentially, when they happened, it kind of seemed like a build-up type of deal because, well, Eugenio hasn't really had the most solid season last season. His numbers kind of really dropped down after his, not to say his first season here was fantastic, but it was solid enough. Though he does hit better. It was kind of weird. He actually hit better at home versus away, which we're not really a hitting part, but and especially with the team vibes too of like, I think he was a big reason why
Good vibes only.
why we signed some of the talent that we did because of just the good vibes. But you did need to upgrade a little bit. I mean, he's got the big bomb capabilities, but he also just struck out way too much and just not really consistent enough bat, at least, especially away. But the pieces that they got back were just not really impressive. I mean, one of them has potential to maybe be there, but it's the December 3rd trade essentially at the time seemed like it was just kind of to release money off the cap because of Evan White's contract and then Marco's contract. And essentially you're offloading money and the Braves are not going to just, pay money for nothing. So they want something along with it. And they decided to sign Jared Kelenic with it as the thank you for taking money off of our hands. But here's, an extra piece to take the money off our hands. I thought Kelenic made strides. He definitely did make the strides that we wanted to see last season, especially breaking his foot, like kicking a cooler for being angry. You could tell though by his going away thing that he was really invested I think he really wanted to be here and really wanted to be a part of turning this team around. But he pretty much thanked everybody except for the organization. I mean, yes, you do have other pieces on the way up, like Baby Jordan, and I mean, Classe has been playing really good too down below. So I mean, you do have prospects that can get there. And then the other kid that we brought up for a little, I'm totally brain farting on his name. We brought him up and out in outfield in August.
Cade
Gabe
Marlowe.
Marlowe.
Cade Marlowe, yeah. But I mean, Cade Marlowe could develop into something possibly, but and then to just do like kind of nothing with it. Essentially, there was a lot of rumors that they were using this as pieces to get money, and then also pieces to trade to go get Isaac Paredes and Arozarena from Tampa.
which still might be in play technically.
Yeah, and it's not to say it's not. Yeah. They're definitely, I think they're still very interested in those pieces, especially Paredes now. I mean, because you essentially don't have a third baseman. So you need a third baseman. So Isaac Paredes is definitely somebody they're looking at. It's just, unfortunately, Mariners ownership is cheap as hell. They're the cheapest parent out of all the parents in the league, essentially. And yeah, I don't know if what are we going to give up to go get these two now, especially since you got a bunch of pieces that really don't mean anything back from them. They're kind of just like McChickens on the side of a deal because you're going to have to throw something to go get Paredes in the Rosarena.
When they were $1 though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, just make sure.
I mean, yeah, now they're like $2.50.
I'll say they're like $1.30. I have a couple,
okay, all right.
They're not like completely like wasted, but
yeah,
I mean, Kevin's not far off. Like, let's just be clear here. Kevin's not far off.
So hopefully they're not done, but because I mean it is still early, but you essentially got about just 2.5 months, and you're gonna have to do it pretty much within the next month, to kind of get the thing started. So it's not looking fun at the moment. Mariners fans are very pissed off, and I mean they have every right to be, because this is a team that you have a lot of really good young talent, and you need to add on to it, especially in a division where you literally just saw the Texas Rangers win a World Series by adding pieces. Do we have to go that crazy as what they did? Probably not, but you do need to spend some money and go get some good veteran players. There is some interest. I don't know if this is too much of a transition, that we were looking at Jorge Soler as a big boy bat. The dude fucking crushed last year. So we'll see. He's another option that could be on the table. As well as some free agent signings that we'll probably get into maybe here in a little bit or another podcast. But yeah. It definitely stung to see Kelenic go, just because the bat did turn up a little bit, and he's still very young. I know he's not like crazy young, like 19, but he's still young. Like let's not be overselling it. He still has time to develop, and knowing our luck, he will probably go apeshit in Atlanta. So that's usually our luck here in Seattle, which would be sad to see. I mean, his bat definitely improved from first season up to last season. I would have loved to see that, what would have happened in that off season, keeping improving on it. And his fielding was solid in left field. So now, should Mariners fans be super concerned? No, because we do still have good outfield prospects to come up. But Kelenic was a big prospect that we just kind of got rid of. So hopefully you fill it. And a Rosarena would be nice to have there. But we'll see.
Well, I'm going to take it, and then I'm going to throw it to Sean. We might have to do a break for them. But, we've done this podcast starting in 2020, and you guys have always told me, the plan is to be competitive in 2023-24. So the time is here.
Yeah.
And, you guys
have like said 2022. 2022.
Yeah. So I mean, like, they traded for Jared Kelenic and from the Mets. Seemed like he was going to be one of those young players that was going to kind of come up with Julio, and they were going to be a dynamic duo. They traded for the Reds for Winker and Suarez, got rid of those guys a couple of years later. What's the plan? Like, I don't see a coherent vision. And, if I ask you guys now, I think you would both agree that they're not going to be what you guys thought they would be at this point when we started this podcast in 2020. Because you guys were telling me that obviously, ownership, GM did whatever. I don't know. You guys kind of had the same plan as them, it looked like, when we were doing this podcast, and now those visions are not aligned. Now, whether it's Stanton, whether it's
I,
Dipoto,
I don't know if
I don't know.
I don't know if I agree that like I would change where they were. I think spending was always going to be an issue, and
But
it is.
when we were talking about these years coming, we were talking about the prospect pipeline, and it seems like the prospect pipeline is mainly there to go and trade for other players. Like we've brought up Brian Wu, we've brought up Bryce Miller, we've brought up some guys, but it seems like they are just there to trade away for other guys, and it hasn't worked out. So, you know, uh, first of all,
I mean,
John Stanton,
this team is competitive. It's not to say it hasn't worked out.
no, I'm not saying. Well, I mean, yes, it's competitive, but this is not what was supposed. This is not the plan. This is not what was foreseen when we started this podcast. So, what went wrong? Sean, I'll throw it to you for a little bit.
Yeah. I think what the plan was, and it's being reported by Ryan Divish, and you could tell with Scott Service's interview. The plan was, and I think I don't want to. I think it is a half a Jerry problem, half ownership problem. The issue is ownership has basically lied to Scott and Jerry for a couple of years. Is the read that Scott Service basically said, and that's what Ryan Divish is reporting, and that's what Jeff Passan reported too. Like they were told they're going to be able to spend the last 2 off seasons. They get to the off season, ownership's like, no, you don't get to spend any money, basically. And they're like, what the hell? Like this is like ready to go now. Spend who knows how much they were expecting to spend. I'm not saying like Jerry's like, okay, we're going to spend $220 million, but it sounds from both of them because Scott Service basically cried when they did the trades. He was like, we were told instead of like cutting and like trying to save money, we're going to be allowed to spend some money. He basically all it said that. And again, Ryan Divish and Jeff Passons reported that. I can never pronounce his name right. I don't want to say John Marassi. I think is his name. He basically eviscerated Mariners ownership. Jeff Passons came on,
but yeah.
Jeff Passons came on 710 today and said ownership's embarrassing. Like right now, like it's just embarrassing. Like they have the money, they're just not spending it. And the issue is why it's half Jerry's fault is we don't know the inner workings. Like it is partially Jerry's fault to basically convince ownership to spend the money. And if he can't, then he can't. And then I don't know if the next guy is going to be able to either because it's never really been since this new ownership took over. And I don't know if that's going to ever change. I don't know if it is. But if it is, I think this is a 90-win team is about what they're going to be because Jerry isn't as smart as the Rays. No teams are. There's like 2 Rays. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you expect them to be smarter than the Rays, that's just not what it is. Like that's not on the cards. But he's pretty good at building a team. Like, right? Like I can all agree. Like he did a pretty good job drafting. He built an entire rotation in 2 years. Jeff Passon's talking about how that's like a miracle. Teams just don't do that. He did it in 2 years. Homegrown talent, has all these young pitchers. But that we talked about, the thing that's missing is spending money, like Kevin said, on free agents. And if ownership's not going to do it, I just feel like this is the limit. You can get in the playoffs and try to get lucky because this is a dangerous team when they get in the playoffs. Honestly, if they got in the playoffs last year, they have a ton of pitching and just some timely hitting. They're the only them and the Rays are the only 2 teams with with pitching. If they got hot, that you could see them running this thing. But that's the thing. Like, I don't want them to just kind of get hot and try to sneak in, but that's the limit. 90, 91 wins. If they're not going to spend any money, it's it. Like, this is where we are. And I think this is kind of what I always saw. Like, I saw Jerry building this. It's here. Okay.
I'm gonna have you hold at third base. We're gonna take a quick, very paid for commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back after a word from our sponsors. Sean, you were in the middle. Keep going.
I mean, I think I was closer to the end and I could kind of get to the questions of the deals. But yeah, I think that's just where it's going to be. 91 wins is just where it's going to be unless any, like Kevin said, any juice is added to this team in free agency. I don't need an Ohtani. I just need something more than a Tommy La Stella. You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be like a legitimate play at like, and it sucks you have to trade for Randy Rosarino when you could just sign a Cody Bellinger. You know what I mean? Like, I just spend a little bit of money, but I just think that's it, Matthew. Like,
well, let me ask you. Like, I don't have a list in front of me, but I know like Bellinger, Yamamoto. There's some players available. Is there any player or combination of players that you would have them see sign and be like, okay, I think I get it?
I mean, I honestly like in an ideal world, like what's left, I don't even want to trade for Randy because I like the pieces we have. Honestly, what I would do is sign Cody Bellinger and JD Davis and understand that that's huge risk there, but that's just all it costs is money at that point. It doesn't cost me a prospect, and I have a right fielder and I have a DH. I solved two birds with one stone, right? I can get both of them. And they're going to cost a lot of money because I think they're both Boris agents actually. But that's what you got to do. Like just fork over some money for those guys. They're going to have to overpay them both. Now they're going to be as good as last year, but I don't care. I just need competent bats in right field and at DH. I don't need, Sam Haggerty in a clinching game that cost us the against the Rangers in the last series. Sam Haggerty DHing. You know what I mean? I don't need to see that. At least DH, JD Martinez is a major league hitter. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of the two pieces I want. I'll talk about the two trades. Suarez is not like amazing. It is going to suck his vibes. He was actually really fantastic on defense, which was like the most surprising thing, I think. He was an average hitter, like literally just league average this year. So Luis Urias is going to be the guy who's going to play third as of now. The guy that they got in the offseason. I'm not super pumped about that. He is 6 years younger, just not last year, but the year before. He was he's been a above average hitter the last 3 years. He had some hype. It's been since faded, but I mean, like maybe he could be an average guy, but also maybe he could be a Wong. Like that's the risk you're running. Could he be a safer pick than Suarez? Yes. Could he be a worse player than Suarez? Yes. Like, and that's just the sucky part. You're just taking more of a risk, a younger risk, but still just more of a risk. And the guys that got back, I don't want to say irrelevant, but yeah. As for the Jared Kelenic thing, Kevin, I don't know if Jared wanted to win here. I think he was pissed still about the call that leaked out, the Rotary Club thing, and where they just like, we purposely manipulated your time. I don't think he ever settled in here just because, frankly, the organization did him wrong. Like they did, and I don't think he had a lot of pressure on himself. I get it. Maybe it's a change of scenery, but Jared Kelenic had a great first like 2 months. Like I have it right here. Hold on. He had a great first 2 months of the season. WRC plus a 170 in March and April. Now, granted, March was like what 3 games or 2 games or whatever. Other than that, he was not even average another month of the season. Wasn't even an average hitter any other month. I'm not saying that can't be, and you're right, Kevin. That is actually an improvement over last year. So you could see that maybe the steps, but the Braves got him to be a platoon. They do not. He is not going to be an everyday fielder for the Braves. He's going to split time with Gresham. So, they view him as a platoon, not even an everyday starter anymore. That's where his ceiling already is now. Now, can it change? Yes, absolutely, it could change with the Braves, but they view him as a part-time guy, and it was purely a salary dump. Kevin's correct. It sucked Marco and Evan White, but it was a salary dump, and Kevin nailed it. You had to get rid of something of value, and they did. What they got back, Kevin's saying $1 McChicken. I say $1.33, but largely you're
Just like
correct.
2010 prices then, about that.
Yeah, I think Phillips is the pitcher. Had some hype. He's young. He's 20.
Tommy John.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's hurt, but like Cole Phillips, he's 20 years old. He just came off Tommy John, I think, the year before, so he should be healthy at some point this year, kind of like a Robbie Ray situation. He hasn't pitched in the majors yet, or not the majors, but like the minors yet. So it's just who knows, but there is some hype there. He was a second round pick just a year ago, so there is maybe some talent. So it's not a complete throwaway, but counting on him, I think maybe best case probably a relief pitcher, to be honest. But I mean, if you get a relief pitcher out of a salary dump, that maybe that is a win in your eyes. But like, so I'd say $1.33 McChicken maybe, but the other guy, yeah, I'm sorry, not really relevant. And that's not even $1 McChicken I'm calling that unfair. I'm so sorry. You're a better baseball player than I am, other guy. I'm so sorry, but I don't foresee you playing a huge part with the Mariners. But yeah, these both were salary dumps, and it's kind of infuriating to dump salary when you already weren't even an average major league team, and you were the most profitable team in baseball last year. Like, you didn't hurt for money. You made up more money than anybody else, and then you immediately dump salary to try to sign players. You have the money to sign players, and you're just actively not doing it. That's the frustrating part. That's the part. And I saw a petition. It was kind of a joke, Twitter, but I'm all for it. Hashtag make Mark Cuban sign by the Mariners. I'm all for it. Like, just because nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter the GM. That's the frustrating part. The one guy we can't move on from is standing in the ownership. And if it doesn't change, like I said, like I think Jerry did a pretty good job getting this to the 5-yard line. But if you're not going to spend, we're going to be at the 5-yard line kicking field goals. That's the last piece that's left.
I mean, we can make an impact, but it might not end favorably for the fan base.
I mean, yeah.
So that's the thing. We can stop watching, stop buying, and then they can leave.
I'll say this: I am not going to American next year. I'm not going to go to American next year because okay, time out. Right now, I won't. I mean, there's still all of free agency basically. Ohtani just signed, so like now free agency is going to start. So maybe they do get Cody Bellinger and JD Martinez, and then I'll change it. But like as it stands right now, if you're just going to salary dump and sign Luis Urias as my third baseman, I'm like, I'm not going to support, at least for a year. I'm going to be like, hey, like I'm not going to go over there and like buy tickets, so you can run that out there. Like you have to at some point kind of be like, we need to sell the team. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have plans to go next year, and I don't pay for Root, so take that, Stan. So
I don't either. So yeah.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. All right. One last thing before we move on to some football. Sean, you mentioned Shohei Ohtani, 10 years, $700 million, mostly not getting paid until what, like 2034 to 2042 or some crazy thing like 680 million is deferred, right?
That's what I saw. So I looked at this deal with the monies and everything like that. The present value of this deal, as according to MLB, and when money loses value over time, I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. So $1 million in 1920 is not the same as $1 million today. So looking at that, the deal amount is like $465 million, really, is what his deal is for. And that's what Major League Baseball valued it at. So he gets basically $46 million against the cap every year is basically what Shohei Ohtani's deal is going to be, is what the hit's going to be. So is what they're looking at. So, but yeah, so
I did see that Bobby Bonilla and Ken Griffey Jr. are making more than him this year, actually.
I mean, in salaries, yes, but if Ohtani does it right, he's going to just live off his massive amounts of endorsements, make no money. And that was the thing. Like I saw some Mariners fans, and I'm pretty sure Kevin did too. Who was like, "Why can't we do this?" Ohtani wasn't doing this for the Mariners. Ohtani did this for the Dodgers because he wants to win a lot of baseball games. Like this was a Dodger deal. He did offer to do deferrals to other teams. And Mariners were one of them. That it was. The issue was, I'm pretty sure. So the rumor also is that no one else was barely in the $600 million range. The Dodgers were like, did the whole tactic of, okay, we're gonna $20, $30. The Dodgers like $400, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like basically, like, and he signed the $700 million. I don't blame him. But
I don't blame him because he doesn't have to move. Like
all the other teams in baseball were like, what the hell? Like, so he went to the Dodgers and is going to win a bunch of games for not a lot of money. So I mean, I don't think the Mariners. You can blame the Mariners for this one. Like I don't see how like $700 million is just insane. It's just insane, and all that deferrals and because he wasn't going to sign this deal with the Mariners. Like it parameters change based on teams, and yeah, the Dodgers gave him what he wanted and a better chance to win.
I mean, I moved this year and I hated it, so I get it, Shohei. Like you could have hired movers. I'm like I mean I had movers, but I still had to put all my stuff away. You wouldn't have to do that, so I get it. You just change where you're driving.
I thought I was like $500 million, maybe $6. Like it'd be just insane for like 12 years, and he gets 700 for 10. Just blew everybody out of the water. So I mean, like, I was all like, I need them to make it a serious play at Ohtani, and then they're like, maybe the Mariners are out, and I'm like, what? And then I'm like $700 million. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like holy shit, like it's almost $1 billion. Like, could the Mariners even literally afford that? There are owners who can't afford that, who don't have $700 million to their name. Like, like I don't know what some teams just couldn't afford this. Some teams just simply couldn't.
Well, okay, Bezos moved to Miami. So what if we get Dipoto to call Bezos to come back to buy the Mariners, and then we could afford that.
And then he'd probably spend the money. He'd probably
Yeah.
spend money, be willing to spend money. I just
Yeah.
want an owner who goddamn spends money. Like, that's all I care about. Like, it's so frustrating to have finally built a good minor league team, but all these young pieces. And the last piece you need is just simply dollars. And you're not going to do it. And you have them. And you have them. You won't do it. I'll let Kevin talk about Ohtani. Kevin, you talk. I've been talking too long. You talk about Ohtani.
Well, I mean, I wasn't surprised at all. Yeah, like it was essentially coming down to us and the Dodgers, and we know the Dodgers just have way more assets than we do, and their ownership isn't a giant fucking cheapskate. Does it feel good that he's out of the AL West? Yeah,
That's true. That's
But,
true. He's out of, not even out of the AL West, out of the entire AL. He's just
yeah,
gone.
he's just out of the AL, which is nice.
Good.
That just makes the entire NOS even more of a crazy, show. With
Does it? I think it just cements the Dodgers have won it for the next 6 years. Is basically what happened. I think.
God, it's tough. Like, yeah, they do have a lot there. I
They
mean,
have 5 people who've won MVPs on that team.
yeah,
Like, it's just insane. Or 4 people, 5 MVPs. Sorry.
I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff. I mean, nobody expected the Diamondbacks to even come out of that division this year.
They did. The Dodgers won the division again, and then it's random. It's playoff baseball, and then the Dodgers, in response to being beat, signed Ohtani. like they're gonna get Walker Buehler back. Like they're gonna get a Rookie of the Year and Ohtani is their response to the Diamondbacks. I'm so sorry, Diamondbacks. It was a great story, but I don't know if it matters a whole lot anymore. I think you had your one shot.
So, yeah, definitely. I'm glad I'm not in that division, but I mean, still the AL itself is still a nightmare. It's the AFC of baseball. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see now that's as Sean mentioned, that's going to essentially kind of kick off free agency.
Didn't the Japanese hitter sign with the Giants today?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I believe he
Yeah, I don't know what his name is, but it's
I don't
6 years, 100 and something million.
Okay.
6 years, $113 million for Jung Ho Lee.
Maris could have done that. Damn it.
Yeah.
All
Probably
right.
should.
I would like to see probably. My whole goal would be them to sign like an outfielder. Like, honestly, with Soler being on the market now, I wouldn't mind Soler being signed, and then
Who do you want more, Soler or Cody?
I mean, you're kind of tit for tat. Soler's more of a hot player at the moment with what he did in Miami last year.
I mean, I'll just take a bat. I'll take either of them, honestly. Yeah, but
I take either, to be honest. If I had to choose, I'd probably choose Soler.
Was Soler a lefty?
no.
I like lefties. Give me Bellinger.
Cody is, but I think Cody, again, there's no wrong answer. Just Cody is good defensively. He's solid defensively, at least.
And I like, just because Ty kind of pooped himself, even though Ty is doing what
he got naked and went to driveline because apparently they all have to get naked.
That's what you have to do to get those sensors on you, Sean.
That's the only drill they do naked too. All the other drills they're fully clothed. And I'm like, why are they naked for only this part? But anyways,
I'd like to see them go get Reese Hoskins, sign him, and then trade for Paredes. And then I think if you get those 3 pieces, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah,
like that's a good lineup, like right there.
Yeah.
Like that's a holy crap lineup. With the pitching that we have too, and with freaking what's his face coming back.
I mean, with that too, you could always have Ty or Reese Hoskins DH too. Like it doesn't eliminate necessarily that if Ty does go to driveline and work out. Yeah, it doesn't eliminate one. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my dream off season is those, because we have the pitching right now. Sure, should we maybe look at some bullpen pieces too? Why not? But you also have some young pitching too that could kind of come up and fit those roles eventually. So
if good players want to come to Seattle, sign good players. But pitching shouldn't be where we're spending all of our limited resources. But if a pitcher's like, hey, I'll come here for cheap, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if you're doing all this to make a trade, go get Paredes. Like, just go do it. Like,
Kevin's a Paredes guy. Okay.
Well, I mean, whatever. I mean, there's other third
Oh,
base
yeah.
but it's sounding because we just like trading with the Rays, which I get because the Rays, have one of the best systems in baseball. They breed winners. So
I think also people are like, don't trade with the Rays because clearly they're getting rid of him for a reason. And I think people don't understand that they're getting rid of him because they just don't pay him. They don't want to pay arbitration money to them. That's it. Like they
got
can't
other guys in the pipeline that can take that place. Like
they like their players. They're just like, we don't want to pay them.
Yeah.
So yeah. Even more than the Mariners don't want to pay their guys.
All right. Well, let us know what you thought of the Mariners offseason so far. Go ahead and twist. I'm at Mariners Matt. Sean is at Nasty Billy 22. Kevin's at C2Believe. That's SEA2Believe on Twitter or X. Subscribe to us. Smash that button. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Let's move on to another sad. We just got a sad show today, really. I mean, it's just sad subjects all around. The Seattle Seahawks. Since we were last on, we talked about this 5-game stretch, and boy, has it gone poorly. So, at LA, 17-16. Versus San Francisco, 31-13. I'll get to that game. At Dallas, 41-35. And then at San Francisco, 28-16. Kevin, what have you thought? Seahawks over the last 4 weeks.
I mean, it's kind of what we predicted. This is, they're going against. We found out we're going to say we're going to find out what this team is, and we found out that this team is not built to beat good teams at all. I won't take all of it. I'll let Sean get a little bit of it, but yeah. There's just so many places to kind of go here. We can start with Gino. Yeah, Gino's not it. Like, he's solid. He's a solid, like, kind of starter. Like he can get you to an 8. He can get you to 500. If your goal is to get to 500, Gino can do it, essentially, and he's going to do it by beating up on poopy teams and getting like one crazy ass win against a solid team, like what we did against the Lions. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
So and then he'll have. I mean, not to now what he did in Dallas, because Dallas defense is good. It is a good defense. Putting up 35 is nothing to scoff at. That's a good, but it's just inconsistencies. He's very inconsistent. We don't know what Gino we're going to get, and then how long we're going to get that Gino. Because sometimes we'll see like good Gino, but we'll only see him for like a quarter and a half, and then he just completely disappears. It's just, like, quarterback play is just really hard. And then also offensive play schemes. Our offense is kind of predictable compared to what you're seeing with the teams that are doing very well right now, aka the Eagles, the Niners, like that, or Miami. What Miami's doing, like they're doing very creative. It's very like you have to be an adapter. That's the main thing. In the NFL, you have to adapt. And you got to be up with the new age stuff and take that new age stuff and adapt it even more and constantly tweak it, because, tape, as we've totally said it so many times on this podcast, tape is such a huge thing. Like, tape it shows weaknesses, it shows strengths. Like, you can game plan toward it, and you can see consistencies and inconsistencies and prey on it or get better off of it. And that's why you got to constantly tweak. And unfortunately, we have an offensive coordinator and a head coach that are not adapters. It's just sadly plain and simple. Though I will say the crazy double fade to Parkinson was actually, I was very surprised when I saw it. Like the double fake screens, like I was like, where has this been hiding all this time? I'm like, that's a tweak I like. That's a good tweak. And they totally bid on it. Like,
they stole it from San Francisco too.
They actually stole it from San Francisco.
Yeah.
They showed online. They ran the same play. Yeah.
So like that's what you do. You take what you see of the new age teams that are kicking butt and you tweak it. You tweak it to, I mean, you had your own little flavor, but you got to try new stuff to where, it throws off defensive coordinators, because good defensive coordinators on these good teams are going to see that type of stuff and game plan against it. So you got to constantly adapt in the NFL. But Pete Carroll thinks that 2008 football wins in 2023, and that's just sadly not the freaking case. Like, sorry, Pete, you have a lot of what we assume to be talent on this team that is doing a lot of bad things. Like, and I won't. I know Sean's going to cover this in a little bit too, so I'm not going to take all of it. But like, now to the defensive side for a quick peek. Like, this is a defensive coach. You can blame it on Clint Hurtt all you want, but it's Pete Carroll's defense. We've been saying it on this podcast for years. Like, it is a poopy defense. It's really bad, and it has a lot of star talent on it. Well, quote unquote star talent, even though Jamal Adams has been playing like ass. But it's scheme wise is terrible. All this zone cover 3, zone cover 2, that's just so predictable. There's no masking at all. Like, Pete's just like, he still has that kind of same. I mean, he switches it a little bit more than what he did like back in like what you see in like 2020 and 2021 on the tape. Like, but when I say it by a little bit, I'm talking like 3 to 5%. Like, I'm not like, you gotta, especially if you're a defensive head minded coach, like, you gotta be constantly like faking, you want to keep that offensive guessing. But like, as we saw with Shanahan, it was just literally like he knew like there was just always open spaces for players to just get open, because he just loves the zone way little too much. I'm not saying zone's bad, but I mean, when it's predictable, they're going to take, and when they have the skill positions that they have on the Niners and all these other good teams, they're going to take advantage of it, just like the Eagles are going to do on Monday night. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But essentially, this place is at a rut. Like, it's time. Well, I mean, I've been saying it since the beginning of the podcast in 2020. It's time to get rid of Pete. Ever since the Bills game in 2020 when Russ was cooking and then they took it away from Russ. And I even quoted it on Twitter, but unfortunately Gino didn't get to play. I said after the Dallas game, I'm like, watch, like, Pete will change it back to pounding the ball. He will take, even though Gino looked good for the first time this season and kind of cooked, I'm like, he's gonna take it away from fucking Gino, because he doesn't know how to adapt, and that he's going to go back to what he knows, which is pounding the ball. Even though it wasn't Gino's fault that they put up over 40 points on our butt, that's kind of a defensive problem. But for some reason, the offense and the quarterback get blamed for it, just like Russell did in the Bills game when Russell put 35 points on a very good Bills defense. But we gave up over 40 points to a really good guy named Josh Allen. Weird. But Pete is not an adapter, folks. Like, but for some reason, the 12th man is so like, they're like, we made the playoffs. It's great. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a lot of wrong with that. It's called winning championships. We're not building teams to make the playoffs. We're building you want to build a team to win a championship. If you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong, kids. You're doing it wrong. Like, period. Be competitive, as Sean has mentioned before. You want to be competitive. You want to be, because you're not going to win it every year. Like, that's just impossible. There's just so many dynamics and other teams changing and stuff like that. But you have got to be in it to win it. To at least the goal is to get to conference championship or bust. Like, if you're not getting to the conference championship, shit's got to change. And unfortunately, we haven't made a conference championship in, it's been, 2015. Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
I wouldn't say it's a conference championship, but like let's say you in the first round you go against the 49ers. Okay, if you lose to a great team, that's a great team. But like, you need to be one of the teams who actually has a chance of winning a Super Bowl.
Because like we saw with the Bills and Chiefs in the division round. It was last year.
That was the AFC.
That's just unlucky circumstances.
Yeah, they matched up in the division round versus
I totally get that. That is just unlucky circumstances. But you shouldn't be getting outed to like terrible midi or just mediocre, because teams that are getting to the playoffs are at least like the third wild card is going to be like a mediocre 9-8 team. Like, you should be crushing the crap out of those teams. Like,
we can't, because that's we're that team. We're
Yeah.
the 9-8
No,
team.
I'm saying that's your goal. That's your goal, is to
Yeah.
be pooping on those teams. Now, if you're going against another like 13-3 team and then you lose, so be it. Like that's at least, and be competitive, not to where you're like getting pooped on like 40-10. Like it'd be like the Dallas game where like we were in it until the end, like it was back and forth, back and forth. That's what you should be seeing in these playoffs, against these high caliber teams, but we're not. We only did it against Dallas, which was impressive. But Dallas yet also has some glaring holes that they haven't yet fixed that we don't really have time to get into. But like the Niners kind of pooped on us, and that was even with Purdy kind of sucking butt for about a quarter and a half. Yeah. So unfortunately, in my opinion, well, it's not unfortunately, I've been wanting him to go for the last, like I said, since 2020. It's time for Pete to go. Like, and if we get a bad coach, who cares? Like, the needle's not going positive, folks. Like, you want the needle to go positive, and with Pete, it's just stuck, and it's just right here. And it's never gonna get here because Pete does not adapt to new age football. He thinks 1984 football wins championships in 2023, and it doesn't, folks. Sorry. Like, he's not going to adapt, and he's just going to use all these OCs and DCs to take the heat, be a scapegoat for what he's set in course. And it's got to change. Unless we want to be the Steelers, who haven't won a freaking title since 2009. But they've been to the playoffs almost every year since. And do you think they're happy? No. Well, some of them are probably like the 12s and are dumb. Are like, well, we made the playoffs.
No,
but
most
like
fans in Pittsburgh want him fired. Yeah, they want him.
Right. It just, you want to win rings, Lombardis. That's the goal. You want to be in the position to win those, and we're not there yet, and we're never going to be there with Pete Carroll. So you got to roll the dice and keep rolling the dice until you get a coach that can put you there. And unfortunately, Pete is not it. So I'd rather just not be in the playoffs and keep searching, keep grinding for coaches. Like, that's literally what Carolina's doing. Carolina won a Super Bowl has been to the Super Bowl more recently than we have, and is continuing to do the coach grind until they can get back. That's the goal you want to get. Now they got the quarterback, at least they think they got the quarterback, but they're keep grinding the system until it gets right. That's what you do. Not just hold on to mediocrity and be like, well, he got us a championship 10 years ago. Like, that doesn't mean anything. If he's sucking butt now because he doesn't adapt, you're just going to stay the course of mediocreness, and it's not going to get better because he's not adapting. Now, if he showed major signs of adapting, cool. But I'll let Sean take the rest of it.
Matthew can go.
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead
or Matthew.
first.
Whoever wants to go first. Sorry.
So I know you guys aren't going to agree with me this, but they could have won all these games. The LA game, they had the lead, they crumbled. And then Gino got hurt, came back, drove him down the field, and Jason Myers missed a field goal. It's just, don't leave it in the hands of your kicker. But it's frustrating because, the officials are not the reason why they lost, but it seems like they were fighting the officials in those games as well. That being said, they absolutely could have played better, should have won the game. I was at the Thanksgiving game, and first of all, Gino shouldn't have played. He shouldn't have played. He was not healthy enough to play in that game. He was inept. They got like 180 total yards of offense or something, and my friend Colby and I were there, and we just tried to walk around and find turkey and couldn't find turkey. So Seattle, on Thanksgiving, have turkey at one of your stands, please. Like, that is what I wanted on Thanksgiving. And also, having seen San Francisco in person, they are a very good team. And I'm going to give Brock Purdy some credit for what he has done, but he is not the motor of that team. It is the offensive line of Christian McCaffrey, 100%. If you take Brock Purdy off that team and put him on any other team, he's not as good. Everyone calls him a system guy, and that's not a bad thing because he runs that system very well. Like, he takes his shots when he needs to. He's got good wide receivers on the outside. He's got a good tight end. He doesn't have to take risks. Jimmy G was successful in that system, and that's exactly what Brock is doing. So, Brock doesn't care. He's winning games, so he doesn't care what I think. So, Dallas game. that was great to see them competitive after that beatdown on Thanksgiving. They could have won that game. They went for it on 4 fourth downs, got none of them. I don't particularly I like going for it on those fourth downs. I didn't particularly like some of those play calls that they went with on fourth down. And then you got to block Micah Parsons on that final fourth down. I mean, I don't know why you expect DJ Dallas to block that guy. That's a very tough assignment. Maybe you should have a couple guys block that guy. I don't know, but it's just it's like they're like right there and then they just fail. And it's just frustrating. And then Drew Lock played fine last week. Like he came in as a backup against a team that is very good and played fine. Like they had opportunities and just couldn't capitalize. And Kevin has been calling for Pete for a while, and I said on this podcast, like, I don't like my coaches over 70. So I'm not opposed to moving on from Pete. And the thing is, Kevin, I don't want to play the coaching carousel. I do not want to play that game. I love consistency. I'd love to find a guy, but we've had Pete for a long time, and I think it's fair to say he has lost it. I think it's very fair to say that. I think that his culture, the thing that he rah-rahs the most, is not there at this moment. Like, it doesn't seem like there's any sort of drive with this team right now. Like, they're just there. They show up, they play, they leave. And that is a Pete thing. Like, you've got to rally the troops. Like, the season was not over after that Rams loss, or after that San Francisco first loss, or after that Dallas loss, or even now. Like, you could still make the playoffs, but frankly, from what I've seen from this team, they've been competitive, but just not there. And it's just like, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. Like, they've got Philly, and they could beat Philly, but I expect them to just get right there and then just fall. Like, just get there and then fall off the edge. It's just, I don't know what it is, but a coaching change I think would be a good thing. Is he through 2025? He's got 2 more years. Is that right?
Think so. I think he's got 2 more years.
So I'm fine with moving on from him. Kevin is very wanting to move on from him. I'm fine with moving on from him, but I would like to say it's not a resume issue. It is a you don't have it anymore issue. You don't have it in this league right now. Like, it could change, but I don't see it changing. And I don't like my coaches over 70. Frankly, I don't like them over 60. So if we could hire a younger coach, under 50 would be preferred. That would be great. In terms of Geno, I don't think he's been terrible. I don't think he's been good. But at the same time, I don't like my quarterbacks over 35, and he's getting up there. Drew Lock is just not it. So I would really like them to go get a quarterback in this next draft. Like, there are a lot of guys. If your pick is high enough, you could end up with maybe a Jaden Daniels, a Bo Nix. I don't think Penix is going to go later, but you never know. Lamar Jackson fell to 31. Jalen Hurts went in the 2nd round. Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick. Brock Purdy was the last pick. So I want them to take a shot on some quarterback in this upcoming draft, because as I think a lot of Seahawks fans recognize, Geno is not the future. Geno is a temporary holdover, and that's what his contract reflects, frankly. So, we knew I think this is what we thought Geno would do last year, and he cobbled it together to get to 9-8. Now he can still do that, but this time it feels different because I think the expectations were much higher. Last year the expectations were not there, and now they have expectations and they just can't reach them. So it is frustrating to watch them and like kind of feel like they're not going to win, and that's kind of the worst part about it. So Sean, I took up a lot of time, but go ahead.
Well, what I'll say is, off your point, the expectations never should have not been there. If Pete and John were doing their jobs, the expectation wasn't necessarily like, hey, we were a Super Bowl caliber team, and we became not a Super Bowl caliber team because of that process. And so needed to be fixed, and it just simply wasn't. We also had the ability on the team to remedy it. Pete did not. That's where the issue came from. Like Matthew, I agree with you completely. The game did pass him by. The game passed him by 6 years ago. That was the problem. Like, it's not that I don't respect what Pete did in 2013. He built one of the best teams of all time. The problem was once he built it, and it's a common thing from the Saints. I think the common thing is like the 2018 Saints draft. It's kind of among like analytics. It's a draft that saves your job for 5 years. You could just have a great draft and knock out of the park and just saves your job for a while. And because you're just doing dumb shit after that, but you just get so many cheap players so all at once, it just saves you. And Pete just bled talent. All he did after like 2016 was just bleed talent. Like the team got worse every single year, basically. Terrible trades, terrible drafts. It was just bad. It was just, everything they did was bad. And that was my thing. I was like, you've got to stop the bleeding. You have pieces, but you have to stop it. And the Rams and the 49ers like, stop it, pull the plug, refresh. And then they got their guys. Now, it could have not worked out. I mean, the Cardinals are in the same division. It could not work out. But like, to Kevin's point, right now, my stance is like, I get it that some people are like, well, you guys are unrealistic. You want them to win a Super Bowl. I don't want them to win a Super Bowl. I just want them to be in the conversation. And I understand that like right now they're not in the conversation. You need a building block to get there. But at some point, you need to actually take the next step. And they just haven't ever taken the next step. They kind of take steps backwards. And I'm like, take baby steps forwards. We can get there. But I just don't know if Pete can get us to that next step. And I feel like that's why maybe a change needs to happen. And I think that's what you just said, Matthew, was like the step has to happen. And it, like to Kevin's point, if you get a guy and they fail, then your chances in the Super Bowl are still the same. They're still zero. Like it's just zero right now. And it's going to be zero if you fail at drafting a coach. So it doesn't change anything. Like just refresh it again. I don't care anymore. Going 9-8 is not good enough for the Seahawks because you've already been 9-8. You were, what is it? The last 47 games, the Seahawks are under, like, they're 5 games under 500. And before that, post LOB, they were like 37-11 or something like that. I don't remember the exact, but they were really good. Post LOB Russell era was awesome. Last 40 something games or whatever, just terrible. So like, it's being middle ground is the worst place you can be. The Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't matter if you keep going 9-8. Nothing changes and nothing will change. If your goal is just to have winning seasons, fine. But like to Kevin's point, if your goal is to eventually win a championship and get a little better, take the step, you're not doing anything if you just keep going 9-8 or 8-9. You have to do something to get to that next point. And I just don't see it happening. To your point, Matthew, I don't know if like all these teams, like the last 6 games, like 3 of them are complete blowouts against good teams. And I'm tired of just, you're not a good team if you can't beat a good team.
We're going to come back.
Okay. I'm trying to speed it up, but yeah, we'll say it, yeah.
After this commercial break. Welcome back from our excellent sponsors. We love our sponsors. Thank you, sponsors. Sean, you were in the middle. Keep going.
I just like the whole test and everything I was asking was just beat a good team. Just beat teams that like are contenders, and I could kind of start to see the steps we're taking. But we're just getting like that. I actually think the Eagles, we have the best chance of being the Eagles out of anybody we face in these last 5 games. So I will say that. But that doesn't mean it's a great shot. I think it's the best shot. But like to Kevin's point, Geno Smith played really well against Dallas. But what happens if he doesn't play a complete game the next time they play Dallas? Because he's not consistent. Like, then it's just a terrible game. Like, Geno had to save us the entire game, basically. And I don't anticipate that happening. If they played again, that's not happening again. Like, we beat, like, the Detroit Lions. Awesome team. Then we beat, like, the Carolina Panthers, who are garbage. The Giants, who are complete garbage. Who Daniel Jones might not even play because Tommy
Cutlets, baby? Tommy Cutlets?
Yeah. Then you beat a Josh Dobbs, not even a team, Arizona team, by basically 1 score.
That was PJ Walker. Thank you.
No, that's the Arizona Cardinals. No.
Oh, sorry.
PJ
Josh
Walker,
Dobbs, sorry.
the 4th-string quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, almost beats you at home because Jamal Adams did one of his 3 things this year where he unintentionally headbutts a football. That wins them the game. If he doesn't hit him in the head, they lose. Jamal Adams also then hurt Witherspoon and also tweets yikes. Those are 3 things Jamal Adams has done all year, and they're all terrible. And only one was good, and it wasn't even intentional. And like, and then you beat Washington by 1 score at home. Like, you're beating bad teams barely, and you need help from them to like do it. Like, I like this 49er game. This 49er game is probably the biggest beatdown all season. The 49ers screwed up just a couple times and kept it close, and they did us some favors. But I told the stat to Kevin, if you exclude kneel downs, the 49ers averaged over 10 yards a play. 10.1 yards a play. They got a first down every time they snapped the freaking ball. That is a horrible game. Like, they had almost 600 yards of offense. Like, they did everything they wanted. And Drew Lock, I mean, let's just played okay, but basically threw 3 picks. Got bailed out by a penalty on one of them, or else it's 3 picks. And the game's even worse if a 49er players that fall down and happens to trip a Seahawks on a fake punt. Like, it was probably the worst beatdown all season. It was horrible. The 49ers kept us in the game. The pick that Brock Purdy threw is a simple miscommunication between him and Ayuk. And if it's not, it's a 24-yard gain. Like, he's so wide open. Like, it gets, so again, a lot of the mistakes were just 49ers mistakes. 49ers played terribly and beat us by 12, or whatever the final scores end up being. Like, yeah, like they played horrible and put up 600 yards and beat us by 12. Like, it was just, I'm just tired of like not being competitive against elite teams. I don't need them to like go to Super Bowls or go to like all these championship games, beat the Chiefs, or you go to 5 in a row, but just like put up a fight against teams that aren't like fighting for the number 1 pick. You know, like the Cardinals and the Panthers and the Giants. Like, I just like, or a 4th-string quarterback who is literally cut for Joe Flacco. They cut PJ Walker because he couldn't play NFL football and signed a guy off the couch. Like, what are we like? Come on, we beat that guy by 1 score. Like, I'm just like, can we just not? Like, can we just not? Like, so much for running backs don't matter. Like, Walker is 600 yards and he's averaging 41 yards a game. Like, Charbonnet is averaging 32 yards a game. Like, stop wasting 2nd-round picks on running backs. Like, you know, like just I feel like half the process is
Start Kenny McIntosh.
I feel like it's not even that. It's just like they've already spent the pick. Like, I just feel like most of the process is there. Most of it, like, you're getting the process, Pete, but then you don't have talent. And I'm tired of like, I talked about this when people are like, Bill Belichick, the thing came out. The rumors he's out at New England after this year. People are like, oh, as soon as Bill's gone, he came and scratched 500. But like, Pete can scratch 500 there. I go, Bill Belichick continuously rebuilt a roster for 20 years and went to 9 Super Bowls. Pete built a roster for 4 years and watched it bleed after that. Like, he didn't refresh it. Pete kept a dynasty for 4 years and Bill Belichick kept one for 20. He refreshed that defense every year. He never, and still to this day with Tom Brady, has had a below average defense. Pete hasn't had above average defense in 7 years. And I'm like, that's not the same. They're not in the same world. Like, they're both defensive guys, and one guy can make a good defense out of anybody you throw in front of him. Bill Belichick just can't draft an offense to save his life, or even have an offensive coordinator. But like, that's a whole different story, because again, offenses mean more than defenses. Shocking. But like, I'm tired of like everyone saying Jamal Adams is good, Diggs is good, Brooks is good, Bobby's good, all these defensive linemen are good, Woolen and Witherspoon are good, and yet this defense officially right now is the 27th best defense in football. That is not the case. Either it is the players are bad and you are misjudging them, or this coaching staff is abysmal, and it's one or the other. I tend to believe probably more the players just aren't as good as they think they are. Maybe it's a little A, a little bit of B. Could be both. But I think the players aren't that good. I just don't think Diggs is that good. I don't think Jamal Adams is that good. I don't think Brooks is that good. I don't think any other defensive line players are even worth anything. And so that's why I'm just like, maybe Williams. I'm saying this before Williams got here. He's only been here for 4 games, so he hasn't really affected the whole DOVA yet. But like, and you trade a 2nd-round pick for this guy going all in this year and then proceed to lose all the games after you trade for him. Like, it's just like,
what are we doing?
Yeah. What are we doing? Like, yeah, what are we doing? Like, you thought you were going for it, and you clearly aren't it. You're not it. You don't have a grasp on what this is. Like, and I Pete did do a lot of things the last 2 years that I liked. That he adjusted. He admitted he was wrong and adjusted things. But like, it's just frustrating it couldn't happen sooner. And I think at this point, I don't even know what to do. I don't know if they're just going to let him ride it out or Bill Belichick this and be like, hey, we need to part ways eventually. But I don't want to keep going, 8-9, 9-8. Like, I want to be able to show the next step, and that's all I'm asking. And these 49er games are just, I think we could put to bed that Pete's the third best coach in the NFC West, because he clearly is. Like, the other two are way better than him. He's not in the same world anymore. Like, and that's fine. Like, Matthew, you're right. Resume is like totally separate. That is not the case. Don't include college because that's not your Pro Football Hall of Fame resume. Like, but like, that's fine. That's fine. But like, the longer you just keep doing this, and a lot of it's narrative driven. Like, a lot of this is like, what if Matthew Stafford plays last year and the Seahawks are 7-10 instead of 9-8? Like, what happens in that case? What if Melvin Gordon doesn't fumble 2 times on the 1 yard line and they're 6-11? You mean you cut out all luck? They're 6-11 team last year. That's what I said. I've said they were not a 9-win team. Don't act like they were a 9-win team. And that's fine. Take the 9 wins, have a good time with it, but you still need to improve and act like you're that 6 or 7-win team you really were. And maybe they're a little bit better, but I just don't think that they're like Geno Smith regress. He's a pumpkin. Like, he's just not. He was the same guy he was the last 10 weeks, where he was like the 19th best quarterback. I don't know what he is right now because I didn't even bother looking it up. Last time I saw, he was the 20th best quarterback. He's basically who he is. Like Kevin says, he disappears. People don't understand. Like, in the Giants game, we were a 1 yard. A Tommy DeVito probably makes this pass, a goal line slant touchdown from being up 3 points in the fourth quarter of the Giants. It was a blowout because Daniel Jones can't throw a 4-yard slant. Like, that's it. And then he turns it for a pick 6. Instead of 7 points for the Giants, it's 7 points for us. And it flips it. Geno Smith had 100 yards in that game. He played horrible. Like, I'm just like, there's a lot of things that mask it, and a lot of it's narrative driven. And I'm trying to like stop all of this and be like, look at what's actually happening on the field. Because again, win losses can like lie to you. They're like, oh, great, and all these other things. I'm like, how good is the actual team on the field? And they're just not taking steps forward. And it's just really frustrating. It's just, there's a long-winded way of saying, like, they're probably going to lose to the Eagles. I predict they're going to be 9 wins. And I actually think they're still going to make the playoffs because the Giants and DeVito beat the Packers on Monday. And that really helped us. If the Packers had won that game, that's probably it. We're done with the playoffs. But we're still have a playoff shot, because if we could go 9-8, I don't know. I don't know if the Rams went out, and I don't know if like the Packers went out, and the Vikings, with their backup guy, Dobbs has kind of come back down to earth. Do you really, all those 3 teams like getting better? However, we're tied with like every NFC South team now, which is just a dumpster fire. But I don't know. I still think 9-8 in the first round exit is going to be in the future. And I think it's going to be to like the Cowboys again. And I want something more. And I like, you know what I mean? Like, we're asking the same from the Mariners. We're asking like, hey, do more. You're winning 90 games, but do a little more. And that's just all I'm asking from the Seahawks too. You've taken the step. Now just take the next one. And if you can't, let's find somebody or something who can.
All right, let's snake back around. So, Sean, I get you're saying like, what if this happened? What if this happened? I don't see the productivity of playing that game. I understand what you're saying, but playing the what if game does nothing. Like, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if the ball bounced this way? What if this? Like, I understand what you're saying.
It's not a thing the Seahawks did. It had to happen to another team to allow the Seahawks. And as soon as it doesn't happen, like this year, they lose both games. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we won games because something else, because the Rams had to start a police officer at guard. Like, they were so hurt. They had to bring in a guy who couldn't throw the ball 30 yards. And that, as soon as that doesn't happen, because that's a normal NFL season, we lose games. And so that's what I'm saying. Everyone's like, we're 9-8, we're 9-8. I'm like, there's huge caveats to this though. Like,
you also say that, but look at a lot of teams who are playing backup quarterbacks. Like, maybe that is normal now. Like, just
Walford
to say, like,
there's so many backups that Walford's not playing. Why is he? He's
Walford
not playing.
is a backup in Tampa Bay, I'm pretty sure.
He's not playing.
He could if Baker goes down.
It's Kyle Trask.
The what if game serves no purpose. Like, I understand what you're saying. It serves no purpose.
It's not real.
In terms of players, I'm fine with moving on from many people on this team. Like, the defense, I think, like, kind of built itself up, but there's no substance there. When we were doing this whole Jamal Adams thing, I believe I said we can admit our mistake and move on, but I was shouted down by you traded too much to get him. You've got to re-sign him. It looks like you should have just walked away from your mistake.
Then you
And
fire John Schneider that moment. Like that, if you trade 2 first-round picks for a box safety, you fire him on the spot.
sure, fine.
Then that's
Whatever.
the only option. If you don't, you have
Okay.
to sign him.
Great.
If you don't, you have to sign him because that is John Schneider made his bed and has to sign him.
Yes, one
He
safety.
made his bed.
Okay.
It is the Denver
Great.
Broncos when they trade Russell. You have to sign him, or else you're fired immediately. It's what it is. It's what it is.
Okay, well, it's worked out great. So, and Brooks, I don't really see a need to bring him back.
I mean, you have no
Some of the-
linebackers.
Brooks has been fine.
I mean,
But
like I'm fine with moving on from some of these defensive pieces that they've kind of tried to build around, like
Yeah.
Diggs. Like I feel like his time is kind of up here. Like he's just not as great. As sad as it is to say, I think Bobby has had a lot of tackles, but I think he's done. Like
Bobby's done. Bobby's done.
I think it's over. So I think a lot of the people who want to keep Pete are the nostalgia people who remember the 2013 season. And as you guys have said, we need to move on. And so I agree that the something needs to change in the offseason. And if it doesn't, if it doesn't change in the offseason, I am fine with calling it the last dance for Pete. Like, give him one sail off into the sunset. Fine. Because if we change coaches, I don't think anything's going to get any better, especially if we do a roster overhaul. So,
whatever we do a roster overhaul too.
what?
You need to probably do both.
Well, okay. So here's the issue. What Sean is also trying to point out about the whole fumble thing is that Pete can't recognize what his team is. As we've said on this podcast many times before, Pete doesn't know how to properly evaluate talent. And the fact that he didn't recognize that last year that he wasn't a 9-8 team, and moving forward didn't recognize like the errors of where he was at. He went and he had corners. Like Michael Jackson was the best corner on the team last year, and we didn't even want to start him. He went and got a corner. The glaring piece was D-line, and we didn't even address it. We went and got a wide receiver when we have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, what we didn't need to get a wide receiver in the first round. Like, we needed a quarterback. Like, Pete just doesn't have the ability to see the talent in front of him and properly evaluate it. And to be on further note, as what Sean mentioned about going and get Leonard Williams, he just doesn't know. He goes with what's familiar to him. Leonard Williams is familiar to him because Leonard Williams is a former USC player. He gets USC people because he's familiar with it. Before that, to try to fix the D-line, he went and got Frank Clark, a piece that he's familiar with. He doesn't get pieces outside of his familiarity because he doesn't adapt and he doesn't know how to coach outside of his own play style.
Kevin, let me ask you. You wanted him to draft quarterback last year. Who would you want him to take? Bryce was gone, CJ was gone, and then Anthony Richards was gone. Who would you want them to take?
You use stuff to move up to go get one of those three. It's essentially what you do.
I was okay not drafting.
Yeah,
you needed to address.
Because I mean, look at it right now.
If you
Bryce
don't
Young
get a quarterback, you
complete,
go get the D-lineman.
Bryce Young has been a complete failure at this point. CJ
Well,
looks good.
I'll chalk up Bryce Young to. Let's chalk up to Bryce Young.
As of right now, it's not. There's not a.
It's clearly a mess in Carolina. Like it's the not maybe quite the Trevor Lawrence thing, and I don't know if he's ever going to be that, but like it's clearly dysfunctional as hell over there. Like
Absolutely.
What rookie quarterbacks can that situation?
Absolutely, but on the field, it still doesn't look good. So CJ,
because they have no players and no coaches. So like,
CJ has looked very good. Looks like he should have been the number one pick. Anthony Richardson couldn't stay healthy and is out for the rest of the year. He had like 3 flashes of games.
But
and then you've got Will Levis, who has taken over in Tennessee and looks fine, I guess.
I'm not saying get a quarterback, but you didn't need a corner. you didn't need a wide receiver. You had 2 first-round picks, and you used it on player positions that you did not need. So it just goes to show you that Pete doesn't understand the holes that are on the team that he needs to fill.
So what would you have taken instead?
You go and get D-line.
So you want a Jalen Carter?
You get Jalen Carter or the dude that went to the Raiders. Like you fill the holes that you need. Like, why get Witherspoon when you got your 5th round rookie, almost rookie or defensive rookie of the year, and then you had Michael Jackson playing out of his asshole, but he didn't know Michael Jackson was playing out of his asshole because he doesn't look at advanced stats because he's fucking 76. He doesn't look at it. He goes and gets stuff that's familiar to him, and he gets people that he knows can fit in his 2008 box, like Frank Clark. Like, he just gets nostalgia pieces or USC players or people that he has some sort of familiarity with, or somebody on his coaching staff has familiarity with. He doesn't go get outside pieces to go play. That's what I'm saying. He's not an adapter. He gets stuff that's familiar to him, so that when he does that, it limits this team. Not saying that you have to go get a player that he's not familiar with, but it doesn't mean that every player that he's familiar with that's out of the Pac-12 or a former Seahawk, I mean, like last year, he brought back, what's his face that the Detroit just signed up, Bruce Irvin. He brought fucking Bruce Irvin back just to play linebacker because he's familiar. It could just pop him right in type of deal. Versus there's probably younger linebackers out there with a second chance that could use a second chance that could have came and probably played better.
I think that's the thing. I think Matthew's overall point is correct. They just need to get younger, literally everyone. I think literally everyone.
Yeah, like when we had the LOB, we
coaching,
were what, like
players,
24,
everyone.
25? Like our team's old. We're old. We're hanging on to 2013, 14, 15. And we're old. Bobby is the last remaining player, and Bobby, I love you. I got your jersey, but it's over.
You can have some old players, but you just can't constantly whiff on drafts because you have no young players then. And that is what you get for whiffing on drafts for 5 years. You have nobody because you haven't drafted anybody.
But at the same time, too, you can't throw out zone cover 2, zone cover 3 for 70% of your defensive
they
plays.
don't have they have no playmakers back there. Like, I will say this, Kevin. I think we did have this conversation last season. I said, what happens if Cross, Abe Lucas, and Woolen all struggle, and they're all struggling? Like,
well, Lucas hurt himself in the first game and really hasn't played. So I don't know if you could say anything about that.
But he hasn't been great. Cross has been fine, but he's definitely gotten worse than last year. And Woolen's just I mean, I was like. And Walker hasn't been good. Like, I'm just like, the entire draft that everyone's freaking out about last year just has not played well. Year 2 has just kicked them in the ass. Like, and I'm not saying that's who they're going to be for the rest of their careers, but like, if it didn't keep continuing, that it was such a fine margins last year where it was just like everything had to break right, and everything did for the Hawks. When everything broke right, I guess is my point, Matthew, they only won 9 games. But everything went right for Seattle last year, and they only won 9 games. And I'm like, it's not going to break right, and then what happens?
Devil's advocate.
I mean, I don't know about break right, but I see what you're saying.
What went wrong? They didn't have any injuries. Like,
devil's advocate to Sean, though, is that they're being taught a 2008 system to use a 2008 system. Now,
but yeah, that doesn't matter though. Like, that's what the system they're in, and if it doesn't matter, then that's just who they are.
But it doesn't matter if you have freaking one of the best left tackles there. If they're in a 2008 system, there's still going to be some struggle buses. Now, it's not going to be.
No, Trent Williams could come in and just be way better than Cross.
Yeah, like, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna the O line as a whole is going to be better if we're doing 2008.
I don't care about the O line as a whole. I just said Charles Cross has not been as good as last year.
But if Trent Williams is told to block the same way, on 70% of his plays, defenses are going to get around it.
No, they're not.
That's
no,
the part
they don't.
No, they're not.
No, if Trent Williams does his job, he does his.
Yeah.
And that's what the individual player is graded on their individual assignment. And if they do their job, that's all they're graded on. And Charles Cross just isn't as good as last year. He's not terrible, and he's actually been pretty close to what he was last year, but he is definitely a little bit less.
I disagree. Coaching can get around it. I'm not saying it's going to get around it every time, but is Trent Williams going to hold up for 90% of the game? Fuck no, he's not. Because you're literally game planning around him because he's doing the exact same thing over and over. I don't care if you got Jesus Christ on the fucking field. If he's doing one thing the entire time and you have tape on it to where you know how to get around it, guess what? You're going to get the fuck around it. Number one thing, folks, is tape. tape is what wins games. Knowing, watching tape, and if they do the exact same thing and rehabituate it for 70% of the game, it's literally why we've been losing. That's literally why the 49ers tore our asshole apart, like through our mouth, is because we were in cover 2 and cover 3 for 86% of that game.
Like, that's not the same as Trent Williams blocking the same way for all of his plays. Like, that's not like.
But you're gonna know how to shift, though.
He has the same fundamentals. Like, Trent Williams doing the same thing is what you want him to do. Block
you want him
the
to be
same
good
way
and block.
every single time.
Yes.
And if they can beat you, they can. And people don't beat him. Like, it's just same with Walter Jones. Just do the same thing every play, and he just
if he's going power right all the time, you're going to know how to combat it.
That's a play call. That's not Trent Williams' call. You're saying, does Kyle Shanahan call the same thing every time? That is not Trent Williams' assignment.
But he's meant to block a certain way, though, based off the play call.
He is zone blocking. That is what they run. They run a zone scheme, and he does it very well.
For them. But I'm saying with Pete Carroll's system,
is zone as well.
It's not all zone.
The zone block. They run a zone blocking
mostly.
scheme. Yeah,
not all the time. Like go back and watch the tape. It's not all the time. That is
the scheme they run, and because that is what they're taught. And so that's why the cutbacks and all the Kenneth Walker stuff.
We gotta wrap it up here a little bit. So we've got some game predictions for Philly at Seattle 5:15. It was flexed into Monday Night Football. I'll take it first. Boy, I am torn between, the Eagles are the better team. Feel like the Seahawks could win this one, but I don't. I can't bring myself to do it after watching these last 4 games. So, also, Jalen, you really hurt me in the fantasy playoffs this week, so I'm pretty mad at you right now. So I really hope you lose. But I'm gonna go. I think it's gonna be a shootout at least. I think it's gonna be Philly 33, Seahawks 30. Sean, what do you think?
I really want to pick the Seahawks because the Eagles, I think, are actually like a little bit fraudulent at 10-3. By fraudulent, I mean like they're clearly the third best team in the NFC. But I just don't know if it's in Seattle.
It is in Seattle.
Philly by 10, 30-20.
Kevin, what do you got?
Philly, with whatever the point margin is. Like, I mean, it's probably going to be more like what the 49er game is. I'll say, like, we're just not scoring points because our shit is super fucking.
The Philly is favored right now by 4, Kevin, is the current one.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, that's pretty, like, so they give usually it'll change. The home is like a minus, you get a -3 basically for being at home. So they're saying basically by 7, basically. I mean, not exactly, but.
I think it'll probably be like 32-14. We're just not scoring. Like, we look like shit on offense, so which is sad.
Is Gino going to play? I think that.
And that's the other question. Like, how healthy is Gino? And if Gino doesn't,
we won't know until Thursday.
Yeah, a groin popped up in practice. Like, I don't know. You guys put weight on injuries when they play. I don't. If you play, you better play well. I don't care how hurt you are, but I don't think he plays. I think Locke plays.
Injuries do affect, but you're right, Matthew. Like, you better play well if you're going to play. And there are players who play while hurting essentially their team. We talked about it with Russell in 2021. He should not have played that Packer game. Geno Smith was better, should have played that Packer game because they gave him a better chance to win the game. But it does affect your ability to play the game when you're hurt. That's the whole Joe Burrow thing.
All right. Well, let us know what you think of Philly at Seattle. Go ahead and tweet your predictions as I'm at _Matt. Sean is NastyBilly22, and Kevin is at SEA2Believe. That is C2Believe. Go ahead, subscribe to us, smash that subscribe button, like our videos, tell us what you think in the comments below. We're probably going to take a little bit of time away for the holidays, but when we come back, it could be more sad tears. It could be happy. Maybe the Mariners sign some players. Maybe the Seahawks win the last
Vikings
4 games.
are just announced that Mullins is going to start against the Bengals. So, NFC playoff team, maybe, like I said, I think the Seahawks are going to get in, not because they're good, because the other teams aren't going to do anything.
All right. And with that, we will see you next time on Washington East to West Sports.